Hello everybody, this is Gregory with How I Lost Over 100 Pounds and I've kept it up for 30 plus years, where there should be no hesitancy in your weight loss and weight maintenance. Today we're going to talk about some safeguards you can implement to guarantee that you don't regain the weight that you've lost. Now before we begin, if you need help with weight loss, contact me through the Clarity FM link found here in the episode notes. Also check out my website, which has hundreds of articles and recipes, my 2 books, and lastly, if you appreciate my content, there is a link for PayPal. Now, some of you have lost weight. I did post a poll about that, I believe, and some of you have lost some little weight, maybe 10, 15 pounds. Some of you have lost 50 pounds and so forth. And you know the stat that I mentioned here, that 80 to 85% of people who lose more than 50 pounds regain it within 3 years. We don't want you to be in that statistic, and I don't want to be in that statistic, even though it's been 32 years instead of 3 years. I don't want to be in that statistic either. So what are some things that we can do, like day in, day out safeguards? Because ultimately the most important reason why these people gain the weight back is typically they crash dieted and they never did the fundamental deep work to disassociate emotion from food, and or they had a disordered relationship with food at a young age, typically due to childhood trauma, and they never separated that trauma from using food as a coping mechanism. And go back to the first one, you can crash diet by using whatever diet, carnivore diet or juice diets, or whatever it is. And people do this. You see people crash diet for bikini season or for a wedding or whatever it is. For short-term periods, people do have the willpower to do it and kind of suppress all these other impulses. But once that milestone ends, we just talked about it recently with half marathon goals. Once that milestone ends, it's like, now what, right? Now that it's September and bikini season's over, or the wedding season that you had to go to in the summer is over, now you're like, now what? And so it's very easy, if you haven't done the deep work to disassociate emotions from food or your disordered relationship with food, it's very easy to slide back into past habits that are bad. And then you blink 4 months later, you've gained 10 pounds. So you must, as we've talked about before, just fundamentally change your paradigm. So you've lost the weight. Why would you want to gain it back? Especially if you guys used to be very obese. You know what it's like. Nobody looks at you. The kind of the depression that kicks in, the lack of confidence, and like Flowers for Algernon, that novel I've talked about, you've had this awakening, you've had this ability, now people are looking at you, now you have confidence. Why would you want to go back to your previous life? And that in itself, in some way, should motivate you. I do have that video. Should the petrifying fear of regaining your weight is it good for you? So I talk about that a little in that episode. So what are some day in, day out stuff? Well, again, you're not expected to eat perfectly every day. We have a video, should you have cheat days? And I mentioned how overweight people should not have a cheat day, because a cheat day can turn into a cheat week. But I mentioned, on my birthday, I'm going to have cake. But why can I have cake? And we mentioned this in the video, don't associate food as being good or bad. It's because I have things daily implemented that help me with weight maintenance. Good sleep, I don't eat till 3 o'clock. I overall eat a pretty healthy diet. I'm exercising daily, and I've done a good job of disassociating emotion from food. That's not to say I'm perfect, but I've done a really good job with that. But you see people, men and women, who maybe have lost a certain amount of weight, and they're like, well, I was 240 and I need to be 180, and now I'm at 210, and well, I look good at 210, and I don't really need to get to my threshold weight. But the BMI is telling you that you do need to get to your threshold weight, because 210 is overweight for whatever height you are typically, unless you're like 6'7". So the problem is you should start making excuses. And I think it's smart, if you've lost the weight and gotten to your goal, that you put a threshold top weight. And we talk about in that episode, should you weigh yourself daily? The answer is no. If you are a recent weight loss person, I would say weigh yourself weekly. And this is important, because you could say, let's say your goal weight was 180, and you're like, okay, I got to 180. I'm going to stop this fad diet that got me to 180. I've disassociated emotions from my eating. I'm going to go back to eating a regular diet, because you can't eat that fad diet forever. You can't have a juice diet for 30 years. Don't listen to the puritanical purists who say for you to lose weight, you must eliminate this for the rest of your life. It's just untenable. We're human. We're going to want to eat bread, for example. But you could put in a threshold weight, like, okay, if I ever get to 190, I got to go back and clean up my diet, exercise better, sleep better, lower stress, fast, whatever it is. That way you kind of always have this threshold. And you need to, I would tell you, probably put in some sort of punishment or incentive. So when you get to 190, there is something that you have to do that you really don't want to do as some form of negative reinforcement. I wouldn't say necessarily a punishment, but it's something that you have to stick to. And you know, there's different examples, but let's say it's like if I get back to 190, I have to donate $1,000 to a charity. And you're beholden to that. Now, I don't know how you would behold yourself to that, but it's something that the large majority of people are like, I don't want to give $1,000 to charity, even though it's a good cause. But it affects you. So it's kind of like shock collars for dogs. You know, they don't like it, and it corrects their behavior. You need some sort of mechanism to be put in. Because if not, you have a slippery slope, right? And you start gaining weight and you're like, well, and then you start rationalizing, maybe I didn't need to be that weight in the first place. Or you're like, oh, maybe the pants are shrinking. And then you stop weighing yourself. And then you start feeling bad because you know subconsciously you're regaining the weight. And feeling bad about that is going to lead to what? Emotional eating. Then you start gaining weight. Then you're like, see, I'm an F up. I'm a failure. And you stop working out. It's a slippery slope, guys. So I'm not saying that you have to be on it every day. No cake ever. Or no alcohol. What I'm saying is, as I've mentioned before, weight loss is 1,000 little steps every day. And it's not like every step you need to be perfect, but there's routines and habits, because habits are instilled by doing them all the time. Make your bed every day, for example. Brush your teeth every day. So we want to instill a lot of good habits, and we do want to be constantly vigilant. Constantly. Because you've sacrificed a lot to lose that weight. Why would you rerun and regain it back? And it's not like you've lost 60 pounds and you blink the next morning and you've regained all 60. It's not like Santa Claus, the old movie from the guy from Home, Tim Allen. It's not like that, right? It takes time to regain it. And then you look back after you regain it, 85% of people, they look back like, oh yeah, I should have stopped that. You can't stop it, but you have to put mechanisms in place to prevent that. And they have to be painful mechanisms, but you definitely have to put them in place, because once you've gained the weight, then you're angry that you let yourself go. So it's much better to catch it in place. So whatever inducement it is, whatever it is, put it in place, because in the long run, you'll feel better about yourself for doing that. And ultimately, the number one key to weight loss is disassociate emotion from your eating, and disassociate whatever childhood trauma you have, find out what it is, and break it away from eating. Guys, post in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Hit the notification, subscribe, and share button. Until next time, take care. God bless and pray.